Hello, class. I hope that you are off to a great start this semester, and I want to tell you why you should be excited about the foundations of public service. This is a serious undertaking. For a long time, public service has helped those who are the most at need right when they are the least able to even say thanks, much less give any sort of compensation for that help. For example, in El Paso last week, we had a single phone call that launched hundreds into action when someone called 911 and said that a terrible tragedy was unfolding. And who rushed to aid but public servants? People who worked for the city, such as the police and the fire department. People who worked for nonprofits, such as the ambulance drivers and the hospital, the doctors in the hospitals. People who worked for the state, such as social workers and child care workers, who helped you reunite families with the children who were deprived of parents and parents who are deprived of their children. People, immigration workers who help people get across the border and repatriate remains of loved ones. Hundreds of people, none of whom are going to get any thanks, any acknowledgement in the national media, and yet they go every day and handle these situations constantly. This is public service, and it's as old as people getting together and doing things as a group. It's as old as farming. It's as old as anything that we do. For example, in ancient Egypt, one of the earliest pieces of writing that we have is by a man named Inspector Merer, Mer, and he was a government worker. He worked for the nation of Egypt, taking stones and shipping them along with food upriver to or downriver rather, to the Great Pyramid of Sheps in Giza, the big pyramid that we all think of, that was built. That is a marvel of architecture, but also a marvel of public administration, a marvel of public service, of what public servants can do when they get together to do something. Or these ancient hospitals where all medical care was given for centuries, including this one from the 14th century that you see on your right. It was run by religious organizations, non-governmental organizations, what we call nonprofits today. And still, hospitals are run by religious organizations and nonprofits to this day. And somehow, it all works together. All these hundreds of people that built the Pyramid of Sheps, the thousands of people who worked in these hospitals, the hundreds of people who responded to the tragedy in El Paso, somehow they are coordinated. They all work together to a single aim. And this class, more than anything else, is about how that happens, how they get together, how we as a society decide that it is worth it to make sure that people are ready to get together in these times, and that this is a profession, that people do this professionally so that they can make it more effective and more equitable and more ethical. Public administration schools like the University of Nebraska at Omaha School of Public Administration have been self-consciously studying public service since around the 1880s. For 140 years, we've been looking at the serious, contentious questions of how public servants get together, what they should do, what they do, and how we can make public service better. Woodrow Wilson here, young Woodrow Wilson, before he was president, was a doctorate. He studied public administration, and he was credited with starting the field as we know it, with the question, how much should we divorce politics from administration? How much is it possible, and how much should we say to our administrators, to our bureaucrats, to our public servants, that we should not be thinking about politics or who's a Democrat or Republican, or even the issues on the table about how we think things should get done. But rather, he argued, we should just be doing it as effectively and efficiently as possible. And that philosophy dominated public administration for many, many years. But at the same time, in the field of social work, we have Jane Addams here on the right. And she argued from her Hall house, where she was actually doing public service on the ground, helping people build playgrounds, pick up trash, do what she called municipal housekeeping. She argued that it's impossible. She actually argued for votes for women. That political statement she made based on her belief that votes for women were necessary for a better public service. That in fact, these two ideas, politics and administration, cannot be disentwined. And so they are intimately connected and will always be. That debate and where we fall on that debate continues to this day, somewhere between completely separate and completely intertwined. Somewhere in there lies the answer, and maybe the answer is each individual for each student. And that's why each of us need to think about that as we enter our careers in public service. This course will introduce you to research such as that, driving debates such as the one between Adams and Wilson, philosophies and concepts from the last 140 years of study of public service. Some of these concepts will include public budgeting concepts about how you actually pay for all those ambulances and all those police officers and all those hospitals and immigration officers who showed up at El Paso. How do you pay for it, right? Some of those concepts will include ethical concepts, but how we know what is right and wrong when we're doing it. Some of those concepts will include concepts about democracy and what it means to have a democracy if people of color and women are not fully incorporated into that democracy. What it means to be democratic and to be representative as bureaucrats, as public servants within this government. So I hope you'll join me for this trip. I think it's going to be a fun one. I think it's going to be a wonderful semester, and I look forward to meeting each and every one of you online very soon.